Okay, now I'm gonna show you how I set up a compressor. There are tons of different ways to use this. I would advise you simply do it over and over again, and you will start to get a feeling for it, and you will start to learn how to set it up. But now let's have a listen. For example, if I want to compress this lead sound here, let's have a listen. Okay, what I can hear, it's 2 lead sounds, and I can try to root them in a group and then compress them together so that they are sounding more as one element. If I listen to them now, I can hear that it's 2 different sources, and I want them that the listener thinks they are one element. So first of all, I'm gonna create a group. It's group 6, then I route this sound into group 6. The Nexus also in route 6. And I'm using the dub delay here. I'm also routing in this group. Group 6 goes to the master. Okay. Okay, now we have the dry signal. And we're gonna see how we can change it by a compressor. I use different compressors. For example, a Cubase standard compressor, which is pretty nice. I would advise you for the mixing stage. Personally, I would just advise you use. I don't use more than a few compressors. I have my standard compressor, like the Cubase compressor, which I use on the most sources. And if I have a special source like the bass line or some important lead sounds, I use a better compressor. But for most of the time, it's the standard compressor is doing a perfect job. So I always start with a compressor ratio of around 4:1 and set attack and release times, maybe 10 milliseconds attack time, and let's say 20 milliseconds release time. And then we just dial the compressor in until there's a few dB of gain reduction going on. Okay, now we can already hear how the compressor acts, and then we can play a little bit around with attack and release, so that we find, and the goal is always to find the most musical spot. Here all transients are killed. Here all transients are coming totally through. So we need something in the middle. Something like this, 7. And then I'm always checking the smallest and the highest value, how they sound, and then take something in the middle. That's how I do it. So let's check the release time. Here you can hear it's all. It starts a little bit pumping. It sounds too. It's recovering too fast to my taste. And here it's too slow, of course. So most of the time I end up with a release around, let's say, 100 and 300, 400 milliseconds. I don't know, I'm not a fan of giving exact values, but in the mixing stage on lead sounds, maybe this is a setting I would say it works for me in 70% on the case. And okay, then we just use the threshold that the signal gets reduced a few dB, and then we make up the gain a little bit. Okay, and what the compressor does is it glues everything together a little bit, and it sounds more as one element. And it also, of course, reduces the dynamic range a little bit, which sometimes can be nice. And in this case, I want to use it, and I want to reduce the dynamic range a little bit. And what it also does, it makes a sound to appear more present. Personally, I only use compressor on important elements. On not so important elements, I don't use compression much because it's not important, and I want to cut through the important elements and use the compressor to make them more stable in the mix, to make them more present, and for everything else, I don't care so much. Then another good technique for compressing, especially, for example, if we go to the drums, is if you use 2 compressors in a row. And with the first compressor, you use slower attack and release times so that the transients are coming through. And with the second compressor, you are just using a compressor like a limiter, where you just compress the transients a little bit. Let's see how we would do it. I'm taking the drum group for this example and remove the compressor. Let's use the Cubase standard compressor. And first of all, I'm setting it up. Something like this. It you can already hear how it brings up a little bit the noise, which is a nice way on a drum group. It enhances all the sounds which are quieter. And now I take the second compressor, where I take a very slow attack. Let's take 1 milliseconds and 10 milliseconds of release. I set it to peak mode, and then I just compress it a little bit. So let's hear what the compressor does. Simply A/B the signal without compression and with compression. Keep in mind always A/B, exact same perceived volume. So what we can clearly hear, that the compressed signal makes everything, it glues the signal together. Everything sounds nicer. It sounds more like it's from one source. It also enhances a little bit the background noises, which is nice in the drum group. It sounds more under control, and it will cut much better through a mix.